Been on BookTube for a while. You know, March is one of the busiest months for read-alongs, readathons, and it's really easy to get kind of lost in middle grade madness, March of the Mammoths. Let's see, we've got March Mystery Madness, and this is also Women's History Month, and so several channels host something called Her Storyathon, which in which they encourage you to read women's history, history written by women, history written about women, and I, pledged myself to participate on that. I went on vacation. I got kind of behind. I didn't make a video about it specifically, but I thought I would try to make up for that by talking about some works of history written by women that I really admire, that I think are really well done, that are important in one way or another, and so that's what I thought I'd do. I think, by the way, you probably heard me talk about almost all of these books before on my channel, but this is a good place to kind of, I think, tie it all together and maybe help you match up with some of the reading goals here at the end of March for her Storyathon. But I thought, I'd run through some books of history written by women, some about men, some about general history topics, some about women, to give you, some books you might want to look into and might want to read. So I want to start off by talking about this book, Medieval People by Eileen Power. Eileen Power is a really important historian by kind of helping us refocus our study of history away from just kings and great men and wars and generals onto the lives of everyday people. And this is kind of a really important work in that, a really kind of foundational work in which Power examines the lives of just everyday people. Some people who are more famous than others, but for the most part just kind of everyday people, and what they went through and what their lives were like. And I really remember reading this as an undergraduate and thinking it's just really great, and it's a really great book. Along the same lines, also quite famously, I think, is The Return of Martin Garr by Natalie Zemon Davis, in which she examines this kind of mystery from French history about a man named Martin Garr who returned from war only to find his wife living with a man who claimed to be Martin Garr. And anyway, it's a really it's kind of a mystery, but really what it actually shows you is kind of the life, again, of everyday people living in kind of, I think, right around pre-Renaissance France. Really good book, also not very long, by the way. Neither of these books is particularly long if you're looking to, fit a Her Storyathon book in. One of my favorite books from a few years ago was This Republic of Suffering, Death in the American Civil War by the American historian Drew Gilpin Faust. Faust here examines how the Civil War affect our ideas of grief and grieving and the burial process and memorializing the dead, because for the first time really in American history, the U.S. was confronted with hundreds of thousands of dead men and people who died during the war as a result of battle or disease or other causes. And it's really powerful, really interesting. And one of the things I think I admire most about this is Drew Gilpin's Faust's ability to kind of pinpoint a topic that isn't talked about very much, and to really, I think, create some humanity and to kind of make us more compassionate and to see more into the lives of people in the past and what they were actually going through. I don't know if you've seen a theme in those first three books, but there you go. Also, I wanted to mention some books that kind of have works of history that kind of have a social construct, and the first one is An Indigenous People's History of the United States by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. Now, Dunbar Ortiz has run into some criticism lately about whether or not she is actually who she says she is, and I don't want to get into all of that, and you can choose not to read it if you want to look that up or not, but I do think this is a really good introduction into looking at the history of the United States from the point of view of indigenous people and kind of establishing the ideas of that settler colonialism, which I think are really important for us to acknowledge and to understand how settler colonialism destroyed the worlds and lives and civilizations of people who were here long before us. Along the same lines, kind of like social issue history, I did want to mention Isabelle Wilkerson's excellent book, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent, which really looks at the history of racism, segregation, slavery, etc. in the United States, and puts it in kind of a worldwide historical context, particularly comparing segregation and Jim Crow to what the Nazis did in Germany in the 1930s and to the caste system that exists in India. And because of that, because I think I really always admire works of history that kind of take a stand, create a thesis, and try to support that thesis. I think this was excellent. There's also, of course, her book, The Warmth of Other Suns, which is an excellent book about the Great Migration. The book I'm reading right now for her storyathon is The Hemmings of Monticello by Annette Gordon Reed, which reminded me that one of my favorite books of last year was On Juneteenth by Annette Gordon Reed. And this is, again, a short book you can pick up and read about kind of the history of Juneteenth and its significance in American history and the Civil Rights Movement, etc. A really good short book, and I'm really enjoying The Hemmings of Monticello, even though it's taken me quite a while to read it. I also just wanted to mention two of my favorite popular historians. One of those is somebody who I've seen reading going on here lately, and that's Barbara Tuchman. I believe what people have been kind of involved in a group read with Barbara Tuchman is A Distant Mirror, which is a history of, I want to say, late medieval period France, maybe the 13th, 14th century, which is just excellent. But Tuchman actually did quite a bit of writing about World War I. A shorter work of hers, which is excellent, is the Zimmerman Telegram. This is probably, I think, her most famous work, and that's The Guns of August. And this is really just a discussion of the lead up to World War I and kind of the early period of the war itself, which I found to be extraordinary. Tuchman is kind of walks that line between popular and academic historian, but you would find her prose, her writing, really easy to read, and I think she's excellent. And then, as you see me mention many times on my channel, probably my current favorite popular historian working today is Candace Millard. Candace Millard recently published The River of the Gods about Richard Francis Burton's search for the source of the Nile. This was the first book I believe I read by hers, maybe her first book, and that is The River of Doubt, Theodore Roosevelt's Darkest Journey. And this is just an incredible work of history about the time Theodore Roosevelt set off on a mission to, look for a river that connected the Amazon rainforest, and he almost died. And it's just really well told, and it really made me a fan of Candace Millard. So, after all, I thought, okay, let me talk about books that I've read, which I really liked, in which women are writing about men. So the first one of those books is a book that I championed a couple of years ago, and that's called You Never Forget Your First, a biography of George Washington by Alexis Coe. This is a fairly irreverent, but I think really insightful kind of look at Washington. It's a nice short biography, and Coe does something really clever, I think, in the places where, Washington's biography would talk about things that you expect, things to be covered oftentimes. She just kind of summarizes it all in chart, and instead she focuses kind of on Washington the man, Washington the myth, and I really, really like this book. If you're interested in psychology, particularly American psychology, a long time ago I read Genuine Reality, A Life of William James by Linda Simon. This kind of introduces you to William James, his work in kind of the early days of psychology, his work at the university level, talks about his involvement with kind of the occult and his belief in maybe the occult world, but it's just really interesting, and also a biography of an author who's really rarely mentioned, and that is Badge of Courage, The Life of Stephen Crane by Linda H. Davis. This really delves deep into the life of Stephen Crane and his family and why he was the way he was, and how he chose to live his life kind of separate from maybe the somewhat privileged upbringing that he had, and how that, in some ways led to his demise. Just, I thought, a really great biography. If we're looking then finally at books in which women historians are writing about women, in February, I finished Never Caught, The Washington's Relentless Pursuit of Their Runaway Slave Owner Judge by Erica Armstrong Dunbar, which I thought was really, really good and engaging. And kind of a long time ago, there was this movement called microhistory, and I didn't choose any of my microhistory titles today, but this kind of just looks at one person's life, one person's experience, who is, connected to an incredibly famous person, George Washington, and, kind of through looking at what her life was like as an enslaved woman owned by George Washington who escaped, kind of then painting a broader picture and a more detailed picture of what life was like for enslaved people in general during the time period in which the Washington was president of the United States. Last year, one of my favorite books was No Modernism Without Lesbians by Dianna Souhami, in which she talks about the importance of lesbians like Natalie Barney, Sylvia Beach, Gertrude Stein, to the emergence of the modernist literary movement. And I really, really liked this. I thought it was just excellent, and it had a lot of insight in it, stuff that I had never made all the connections with. But for me, the draw was really the chapter about Sylvia Beach, the creator of Shakespeare and Company bookstore in Paris, the publisher of Ulysses by James Joyce. I just really was drawn to it, and I thought the book was great. One of the most popular works of history I think I saw on BookTube, and I actually saw Britta Bowler refer to this book in her recent video on a similar talk to mine, and that's Cleopatra, A Life by Stacy Schiff. Just an incredibly well-written, entertaining, engaging biography of a woman about whom very little is known, and what we do know is largely the result of some of her enemies and what they had to say about her. But Schiff really digs out, I think, the essence of Cleopatra and her life and her ambitions and her talents and her excellence in ways which, oftentimes are glossed over in history. Also, a few years ago, for October, I read Queen Victoria, 24 Days That Changed Her Life by the English historian Lucy Worsley, who you see on TV a lot in videos about English history. But this looks at the life of Queen Victoria, as the title says, in 24 days, and talks about how these specific 24 days shaped who she was and what she believed in and how she behaved and the decisions she made. And I really, really liked this book. I was surprised at how much I liked the book. I bought it thinking, okay, I'll read this for October, and it'll be a work of history for October, and I really ended up appreciating it a lot. And then just one of the, I think, the really great works of history that came out recently and has been celebrated on BookTube, and the BookTube Prize, I believe, is Square Haunting, 5 Writers in London Between the Wars by Francesca Wade. Really looking at the lives of, it says, 5 women who lived essentially in the same place, not at the same time necessarily, and who are all writers and who are all kind of connected in ways in which, in terms of creating modern literature and creating space for women writers, including Virginia Woolf and Eileen Power, who I mentioned her book very first. H.D., who else is in here? I forgot. Dorothy Sayre is in here. It's just a really, really great work of history. It's kind of hard to describe exactly how she ties it all together and makes it work, but it definitely does. Anyway, there you go. There's some recommendations for you for Herstorathon. If you're still, looking to pick up titles and read for that, which I encourage you to do. Some really great works of history by women historians. If you have any comments or suggestions, I look forward to those in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.